Alright, so welcome back to Drawing in the Dark with Levi Smith. I'm Levi Smith. And today we're doing a part two to one of the All Skulls uh, process pieces for the All Skulls coloring book. And yeah, we're just going to get right into it. We've got where we left off before, which is right here. And yeah, and it was off to a really good start. So we're going to take this, and I'm just going to, looks like I didn't save my file there, so I'm just going to save my file real quick. All right, so I'm going to make another layer, and then one of the things that I think I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to use a little perfect circle tool on a new layer. I'm going to draw out an actual perfect circle on the good old Clip Studio. And you know, if this is your first time watching, I didn't mention it in the first part of this this particular drawing. I'm running off of a Microsoft Surface tablet, a Surface 6, and I am using Clip Studio for my drawing program. It's got some similarities to Photoshop. It is a really nicely designed drawing program. It works well with just using a pen, as I'm doing now, where you don't have to go back and forth with a mouse or rely on a lot of keyboard shortcuts, which is something that I tend to do as a Photoshopper. But yeah. So here we go. We're just gonna make this nice little ring right here like this. I did erase all of the spots where it goes under the head. I'm going to make another layer. I will, I did copy and scale up the first ring, but for these outer rings, if I just copied that one and scaled it up, it wouldn't quite work right. So you really got to just make another circle here. And what I'll do is I usually do the best I can with getting that to the size I'd like it to be. And then from there, I'll just scale it up a bit. You want to minimize that scaling, especially working in raster like this, because it'll pixelate the more. So you can't really do, like if I do an example of make a little circle like this and then we scale it out, it gets like that, and it gets all fuzzy and janky, and it's no good. So we're going to go back to where I am here with this one. And because I've got, shrink this down just a bit, like that. And I'm not like a super duper hardcore expert of Clip Studio here. So say like snapping all of these circles to to perfect alignment is not exactly something I've figured out, and I'm sure it's not entirely a super hard process. But one of the things I do, so I made this second one, I scaled that up. You can see how it's wider up here than it is down over here, so I'm just going to kind of like adjust and move it around. And I'm just going to eyeball it. That'll be okay. A subtle amount of imperfection in a piece gives it a human quality that I think is just much more appealing as a human consumer of art. So yeah, so I'm going to build that up. I'm going to drop this down, drop the opacity down on that, and I'm going to work on a separate layer as well from there. But I just wanted to get that in so that I know where some of these boundaries are in a final kind of composition there. So, but I think this time around, and this one might actually end up being like a three-parter to get the workups completely finished, is I'm gonna work on this area here, this set of there's 7 skulls here, but this space, and so I'm gonna kind of subdivide, find the middle point here, because I think there's a lot of room wasted with just that smaller skull right there. So I'm going to draw this egg shape. I'm going to give myself a center line here. I'm going to kind of like flatten out the sides a little bit here. That's going to help me with the planes of this egg shape that I'm kind of like carving away from, carving material out of. One of the things, and it can be just obvious in watching this that I really like to evolve the drawing. I like to develop it. I like to build it. I like to put down, these little foundational elements and tools and stuff, and then from there kind of use that to inform where I'm constructing things. You want, this curve of the eye line. You also, or I at least, also like to have that teeth line right there on the same kind of curve, and then that chin line on the same kind of curve. And these lines get closer together the more they kind of overlap. With this like downward cast. And I will lower the eyebrows on this guy. Oh, that's a beefy eraser. So we're gonna make that a little bit smaller. We're gonna drop that down like that. Gives him one giant forehead. Got some Klingon level forehead going on here. It's like a 7 head. But we're going to do this. We'll lower this a little bit because I want him to have a bit more of a downward cast. So you'll see that I'm evolving the piece. I'm editing things. I'm redeciding where things are going to go. So I'm going to bring that, that tooth line up, that mouth line. Everything's going to kind of tuck behind a little bit. We'll bring that chin up as well, just so that I don't get a little too messy and confusing. Some of these lines that I'm just ditching out, I'm just going to erase. But yeah, so we'll do this. We'll do our little teethy zigzags right now. Do that. So that's not too bad. Do these kind of angry Spock lines here that'll bring the eye sockets up a little bit. Yeah, and sometimes you'll be able to see me kind of like struggle with the lines that I'm trying to make because the making these lines with a stylus on a screen with a computer, there can be a bit of a lag. Sometimes the processor is getting a little too tired and starts kind of like interpreting and shortcutting my line work, or I'll get a lot of busy wheels, and so it's one of those things that I get a little too far. I do have to like stop, turn off the machine, let it rest, turn it back on, and then everything's working pretty good from there. Just giving it a time to refresh its RAM and clear out processors and stuff like that. Now this is a thing, like we could put something right here. I don't know what we could put right there. Maybe not a big old Charles Manson X. Maybe that's an X-Men X. It doesn't seem appropriate for the piece, but in that particular area right there, we could put something that would be interesting, that would keep this guy's dome from looking so freaking huge. But for right now, we're just going to move on. I am going to kind of just rough out where these skulls are going to go. I'm going to kind of make the going a little bit back into almost like a sketching kind of stage, where I want to take these guys and having knowledge of what's going on. I mean, these could all just be skulls, but if I try to think of, we'll whose skulls are these? Why are these skulls here? What's the connection with with this guy? So maybe he was like a general or some kind of awesome knight. Maybe we have, I mean, what do we have? We have 7 down here, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 15 skulls. There's like 15 individuals along with him that makes 16. That's that's an interesting, notable thing. Like maybe these skulls represent warriors that he's fought with, people he's defeated, the other evil minions that he's been trapped away and locked up on or with. Maybe they are the monks that sacrificed their lives to properly lock this guy away. Who knows? Who knows who these guys are? But knowing, even if just while you're drawing, just coming up with a story, asking yourself interesting little creative questions like that can really help kind of decide and communicate, and it makes it more interesting. Like the more encoded of a story you put into the piece, the more story the piece tells, the more it triggers the imagination for somebody. They get the sense that there's more going on here, that there's something that's that there is a story behind it, and really it's hard to give something that sense without it being there. If it's not actually in there, then it really is hard to convey it in a generic way, where you can come up with something like these are the seven conquerors in which this guy had defeated, and so that can tell you, okay, so they're conquerors, so they should be maybe distinct from each other, maybe they should have crowns, maybe they have maybe they should look more powerful, maybe they should look more defeated, all kinds of different questions and stuff that'll inform you on what to give these like generalized forms. They came in a generalized way in the compositional process, but the more that you give it, the more it'll express for you. I can have these on this side be a little bit more obviously different from the ones on the other side, especially because we have our symmetry sorted out. And so symmetry and asymmetry playing together can be a really nice, strong team up for an aesthetic feel, because then things feel balanced. But if they're not absolutely 100% balanced, then that'll trigger some curiosity, and that curiosity, will build up more interest. Give this. You can see how this one kind of looking at the planes, because the direction that this one's facing, and I probably should have did that a little bit more with this one. But this can be a little bit more of like a complex angle to face, for any kind of face, a skull, a skinned face, whatever, cartoon or otherwise. So this can be a little bit more challenging of a direction and angle, especially if you're not, using your reference, if you're not looking at anything, these kinds of constructive processes and stuff, which usually work a little bit better. This is something that I could have developed more in the earlier sketching process, but I really did try to keep it as simplified as possible so that I could kind of demonstrate these things in the video. One of the things, though, and as I pull out, and this can be really important, is as I pull away from all of this and I can see things on their own, I can see that this face is so small compared to the rest of the dome, and it shouldn't be, like being low like that, it still doesn't mean that it should be quite so small, where like this is much bigger. So think with that, I'm going to I'm just going to erase it. And I'm going to look at this. I'm going to pull these eye sockets, higher up, give them more room, spread them out a little bit bigger. Bring that part of the skull more wrapping around this line from the side to the front. Give him his angry eyes. I'm not trying to draw perfectly anatomical skulls. These are more comic book style skulls, obviously. Part of that is, I want them to kind of have room for expression. I want them to be able to be a little bit more than just like anatomical kind of drawings. I find it to be more interesting, more entertaining, and more expressive. And a lot of this, I guess, I really learned how to draw skulls when I was a kid, looking at like Ghost Rider comics and old horror comics and stuff. And they would do that. They would put more, bigger, more expressive eyebrows, and show more of like mouth expressions and stuff that you would actually be able to get out of an anatomically correct skull. And there are just these little solutions and stuff that just made them faces that I really liked and learned from and started to employ. And so, from time to time, I will do, an anatomically correct skull drawing. And they're fun and they look great and stuff, but for me, like, these are, this is, it's comfort art for me, drawing skulls. There's a drawing trick where, as a good warm-up before you start your day, you should try to draw something that's simple and familiar and easy for you to draw, so that for one, that you'll be successful at drawing it under just about any conditions. And a little mushroom or flower or something, whatever it may be. But you start your drawing day drawing that, draw a little thing like that, and it gives your mind like a little bit of a reassurance that you got it. Okay, good, we're doing it. We can draw. Because if you start off with something that's particularly challenging or unfamiliar or something, or complicated, and it doesn't work out for you, then your mind gets into this trap of like, oh man, we can't draw today. It's not working. We don't, we're no good. And then all this negative self-talk and stuff that really kind of messes up the whole vibe. And so to really get that vibe onto a good start, that inspiration, the muse, whatever, start drawing something that's simple and basic that that you'll be able to be successful at. And for me, that was always these little skulls, just quick, simple little skulls. I draw like 5 or 6 little skulls, and then I get going, be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm feeling it, I've got some things worked out, my hands moving, my hand and my head are talking to each other properly. It's all working out the way I intend to and stuff, and then I move on to higher priority work, the work of the day, or something that's more challenging, and so it can be a really good method, and so with that, and skulls being my simple, easy little thing that I can just draw no problem, it's comfort drawing for me. If I'm stressed out, if I need to draw for like a therapeutic reason or something, it will often end up being just drawing skulls and stuff, because it's not always the drawing doesn't necessarily have to be representative to like what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, or like some kind of communication about the moment or something, or it just has to be something that engages my hand and my head on a level that I can then focus out of whatever it is whatever bullshit that's in my head that's messing me up. And so it's one of these things it's one of these things where, you know, like art therapy and stuff doesn't have to be directly like attached to what ails you. It can just be making the art, getting lost in it. And there's something really powerful with being able to create, to be creative, to have something, you know, that you can put, say, like negative energy into, and then your end result is generally a positive, creative thing. You know, some people might not see like all these skulls being drawn as like a positive output, but it really is. You know, this is adding into a productive project. This is going to be something, you know, that I'm doing with purpose. You know, and that sense of purpose beyond whatever, you know, the outward aesthetic that's associated with it, you know, is incredibly positive and powerful, and helpful. And it's something that I think a lot more people should do, even if just not on any kind of like, you know, particularly being productive or purpose, you know, or say like entrepreneurial with these pursuits, but just to doodle just for fun, just personal reasons, just for your own entertainment, just for your own distraction. And it ends up being way more rewarding than, say, like, you know, just scrolling through, you know, videos on YouTube or something, where you end up with something that's a little bit tangible, and it's interesting too, where you'll say, like, you know, you're on the phone and you're talking and stuff, and then you're doodling while you're on the phone, maybe, as they did in the past, back in the day, and then you get off the phone and stuff, and, you know, you stop doodling, you go about your day. A couple weeks later, you go back to that little doodle, and it kind of like, it'll make you remember who you were talking to, what you were talking about and stuff. It kind of like becomes a checkpoint or some kind of a marker that encapsulates information in time in a way that's not linear, that's not direct. You know, it's even like, you know, abstract on a lot of levels, where you know, sometimes I'll look at a drawing and I will be able to remember the exact episode of Star Trek that I was watching when I was drawing that. You know, I could, you know, and particularly, you know, particular scenes or elements or something from it. I look at a drawing, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, that drawing of an apple totally reminds me of the Starship Enterprise. You know, and that's a kind of like association and inspiration and stuff that I'd be surprised if AI can really get to, as far as like AI generated content and stuff, AI art, AI music. You know, it's I don't know how effective it's actually going to be in being. I mean, because it is art, it is creative, you know, and maybe I'll just talk a little bit about what I think about AI art and stuff here, but. To me, it's not the prompter that's making the image, that's making the decisions within the image, the lighting, the texture, the proportions, the composition. It's the machine that's making all of those decisions. So as a prompter for AI art, that's really the client, or at best the producer, you know, who's telling the creator, or guiding the creator on what, you know, on what to do. You know, like somebody tells me, hey, you know, I want a dragon holding a pearl, and with koi fish swimming around it, and maple leaves and cherry blossoms, and wind and waves. You know, so I could tell an AI art generator, that that's what I want, in the same way that I could tell another artist that that's what I want. And then it's them who produce the piece. You know, because I asked an artist to draw something like that for me, doesn't mean that I made that. And so when people, show the AI art that they've had produced, and they present it as I made this, that's one of the problems that I have with it, because it's like, no, you didn't make that. The computer made that. The computer made that based off of what you asked it to make, sure. And it wouldn't have made anything if you hadn't asked it. And that can be true of human artists as well. I may not draw that dragon piece unless somebody asks me to draw it. If I just draw on my own, well, then I might draw the X-Men or something instead. But that's so. But it's the artist that makes the decisions for where the waves go, which pearl, which hand the pearl is in, what shape are the scales, all of this stuff. And you could go and say, get more and more granular and say, okay, I want the scales like this. I want the color to be like that. I want the pearl in this hand. I want the waves at the bottom and the wind, and the clouds at the top. And you can get more and more specific with what you're telling it and what you're requesting of it and stuff. But still, it's it's the machine that's the artist. The prompter is the client. And and in the same way, if somebody asked me, and I'll go about a process that isn't all that dissimilar from how an AI would produce the art. I'm going to look at the information that's been provided to me over the course of my life, the similarities to different stuff. I may even go just directly look at other people's pictures, and so that I can reinterpret them, or use them to inform me, use different compositions, different textural elements, lighting, stuff like that, and go about a very, very similar process. But I'm doing it though, so I get to say, like, hey, I created this picture. I didn't invent what a skull looks like. I didn't invent what bullshit medieval fantasy armor looks like. I didn't even come up with the composition of all of this, with the figure in the middle surrounded by a ring with all these different elements and heads and all this stuff in it. So there's a lot of particular things that I've lifted and learned from and copied and been informed by, and and not all that different from how an AI would necessarily do that. But it's going to take me a while to, say, complete this piece, and I can't do 10 at a time. And I, the cost. I mean, it's incredible stuff. It is incredible stuff, and in a lot of ways, it's going to be disruptive and problematic. And I think part of what, and how a lot of people feel that it's unfair is that, we weren't supposed to be automating the cool stuff to do. We're supposed to be automating the uncool, the unfun, the dangerous, the boring, the monotonous, the tedious, the easily, frauded kind of stuff. We want to automate certain things that'll make society better. But giving the music and the art and the poetry to the machines, man, I mean, I don't think that's what people really signed up for. And so it can be a really fascinating kind of issue that we're going to have to deal with socially, as, because, I mean, it's not going to go away, right? I mean, no one's going to undo the data sets. No one's going to stop using it. And in fact, if we don't, as a nation, in America, as it were, if we don't develop more powerful and robust and varied AI generative technologies, then we're going to be left behind by those countries and entities that do. So it's one of those things, like, it's more irresponsible to not pursue AI generative technologies than it is to pursue them. It's definitely going to be dangerous either way, But you know, if this is something that's going to be weaponized, if this is something that's going to be a really powerful tool of productivity and communication and human effort and advancement and stuff, then we need to pursue it. You know, you can't stop other countries from pursuing it. And if it what gives them the edge, then you know, then that was on a national security level irresponsible for us to not pursue. And yeah, that doesn't make me feel any better about it. But I don't see any other path around that. You know, I just don't. Yeah. I think this is gonna be good enough for this process. Man, I don't know. I don't like this guy here. I'm gonna do something with him next time. Maybe it's like the way his mouth is or something. Maybe if I just get a little bit more obvious with some of these dark spaces around him here. Right? That's better. Not really. Yeah, so I'm going to stop this one about here. We're going to be doing another one, a part 3, where I will be working on this area right here. And then I think from there we'll be doing a few other details and stuff. But I think from there, because I'm going to just duplicate that over here like I had said in the previous video. Yeah, and then we're going to be able to get to a point here where I'll be able to call this one done, at least for the video series. Once I finish these and stuff, it's at least as far as like on this kind of level, and then I go through and do the final inking, the rendering, the final line work and stuff on them. Those images will be, you know, going into the All Skulls coloring book, and I'll be posting those as well on the Patreon page, patreon.com/mopandbucket. And so you'll be able to check those out. They're not being included in these videos because they just don't exist yet for these videos and stuff as they'll be going up. And you know, and I like to save a little bit of something for the patrons as well. So the final images for these, those will be going up in, you know, exclusively to the Patreon page as far as an online release, and then we'll make it into the All Skulls coloring book. Good coffee. But yeah, so that's basically going to be it for today with this one. Don't forget to check us out on our website, jademonkey.net. We got stuff, we got merch, t-shirts, stickers, art prints, custom tattoo designs. Yeah, and you can find a way to check all that out. You know, you look at us on all the socials. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, catch you later. Thanks.